Brown bears have to deal with a lot of stuff. Humans kill them for sport. They get snared in the fishing gear left behind by humans. And their favorite food, salmon, has gone through a dramatic decline in numbers in the last 100 years due to overfishing by humans. That's why it's always so easy to feel bad for brown bears. But there's one more thing that's been really hard for them, and that's living in the shadow of the polar bear. You know, the whole charismatic megafauna thing that polar bears have going on? Yeah, that's kept people from appreciating brown bears for all they are. To learn more about how being overshadowed by polar bears affects brown bears, I traveled to an unlikely place, the small town of Jackson, Wyoming, home to a population of about 10,000 humans and one brown bear named 399. Hi, 399. Now, it turns out that 399 is something of a celebrity. She's the only brown bear in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem known to regularly come into town in search of treats like donuts and, well, pretty much anything else humans will leave lying around. That's because 399 is a problem bear. Like many other brown bears, she's lost her fear of humans and is willing to put herself in harm's way to get a tasty snack. Since she's such a well-known local character, 399 has a research team dedicated to monitoring her behavior. And me, I was lucky enough to spend a day with them to observe the world's most famous problem bear. Now, 399 isn't just a problem for humans. She also has to deal with another kind of human-related problem, namely the fact that people see her as a less interesting, less charismatic version of the polar bear. Charismatic megafauna, like polar bears, elephants, and, yes, even pandas, get more attention and funding than less charismatic megafauna, like, well, brown bears, gray wolves, and spotted hyenas. Part of the reason brown bears don't seem as cool is that they don't have the same adaptations that make polar bears look so badass, like huge claws for gripping slippery ice-thick fur and blubber to keep them warm in sub-zero temperatures. And of course, that color scheme. White bears on blue ice is just inherently more striking than brown bears on green grass. The difference in how we perceive these two types of bears says a lot about our values as humans. We tend to care about things that are rare, that exist on the edge of our abilities to comprehend, and that are visually striking. And it's those very qualities that have helped polar bears become icons of the animal world. Meanwhile, brown bears, along with most other large land mammals, don't capture our imaginations in the same way. But looks aren't everything. And brown bears can do things that polar bears can't even dream of, like catching fish with their paws. Well, okay, maybe polar bears can dream of that. But brown bears actually do it. That's because brown bears live in a wide variety of environments, from coastal areas to open grasslands to dense forests. And that means they have to be good at catching a lot of different kinds of prey. Brown bears are also more flexible in their social interactions with us humans. In some places, they've learned to avoid us entirely. In others, they're comfortable enough to beg for handouts. And in yet others, they'll charge us without provocation. Brown bears have had to learn to adapt to humans in order to survive. And that makes them more complex and interesting than polar bears, which typically don't encounter humans until it's too late to run away. Of course, it's not all sunshine and rainbows for brown bears. Being good at adapting to humans comes with some serious drawbacks, like the fact that we can outsmart them in pretty much every situation. And with their populations still struggling to recover from centuries of poaching and habitat destruction, brown bears need all the help they can get. So next time you're torn between donating to a polar bear conservation group or a brown bear conservation group, remember this: brown bears would happily trade places with polar bears if it meant getting more salmon and fewer humans. Maybe someday soon, they'll get their wish. This episode was brought to you with the help of our patrons. Just like our brown bear, Your support helps us keep doing what we do, even when things get tough. If you'd like to help us make this show, you can go to our support page to learn more.